Hello, little listeners. Welcome to another enchanting story time. Today's story is about a clever and curious fox. He was a sly one, always sniffing around for a tasty treat. His nose was always twitching, and his eyes were always on the lookout for something delicious. One sunny morning, the fox decided to take a leisurely walk in the woods. The sun was shining brightly, and the forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. He was feeling quite hungry and was on the lookout for something yummy to eat. As he wandered through the forest, he sniffed the air, hoping to catch the scent of a tasty morsel. The fox's stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the previous night. He knew the forest well and was confident that he would find something to satisfy his hunger. The fox's journey through the forest was filled with excitement and anticipation. Every rustle in the bushes and every movement in the trees caught his attention. He was determined to find a delicious meal to enjoy on this beautiful sunny morning. Suddenly, he stopped. He smelled something sweet and delicious. He looked up and saw a bunch of grapes hanging high up on a vine. Wow, those grapes look so ripe and juicy, he thought. I must have them. The fox stood on his tiptoes, his eyes fixed on the luscious, ripe grapes hanging from the vine above. He stretched his neck as high as he could, hoping to reach them with just a little more effort. He jumped and jumped, his legs pushing off the ground with all their might, but the grapes were just too high, always out of reach. Determined, he tried to climb the vine, his paws gripping the slippery surface. He clawed and scrambled, but it was no use. The vine was too slick, and he slid back down every time. The fox was getting tired and frustrated. His breath came in heavy pants and his muscles ached from the effort. He sat down, looking up at the grapes with a mix of longing and defeat. He thought about all the different ways he could try to get the grapes, but each idea seemed more impossible than the last. Finally, with a sigh, he shook his head and decided to walk away. "Those grapes are probably sour anyway," he muttered to himself, trying to console his bruised ego. As he walked into the distance, the sun setting behind him, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret. But sometimes, he thought, it's better to let go and move on. Section 4, Maybe Not. In the heart of a lush vineyard, a clever fox found himself in a predicament. He paced back and forth, trying to think of a way to reach the grapes. The grapes hung tantalizingly above him, just out of reach, their plump, juicy appearance making his mouth water. He even tried to use his tail to knock them down, but nothing worked. He leaped and jumped, his determination unwavering, but each attempt left him more frustrated. The fox sat down, panting and out of breath. His energy was spent, and his once bright eyes now looked weary. He had tried every trick he knew, but the grapes remained stubbornly out of reach. He looked at the grapes, now further away than ever. As he gazed up, he realized that no matter how hard he tried, some things were simply unattainable. With a sigh, he muttered to himself, "Maybe they're not worth it after all." The fox stood up, casting one last glance at the grapes before walking away, leaving the vineyard behind. Sometimes, he thought, it's better to let go and move on. Section 5, Sour Grapes. Finally, he gave up. "Those grapes probably taste sour anyway," he huffed. "I didn't want them anyway." And with that, the fox turned and walked away, pretending he didn't care. Section 6, What did we learn? Well, little listeners, sometimes when we can't have something, we pretend we don't want it anyway. It's easy to despise what you cannot get. But remember, it's always better to be honest with ourselves. The end.